What's up guys, RGT85 here, and originally this was not going to be today's video, but two big news stories have just broke recently. One about the Xbox One successor, the Xbox Scarlett, or the Xbox Lockhart, and of course the Nintendo Switch getting huge sales. So I basically just want to go over these two stories with you guys because the Xbox One successor situation is something that we just talked about a few days ago on the channel. You might remember I talked about my concerns about the Xbox Scarlett because of the lack of dev kits. What is Microsoft's focus with this system? But a big report just went out today that was done in conjunction with Kotaku and The Verge, and it's definitely some stuff that we need to talk about because it's looking like it's going to be a very interesting situation with the Xbox Scarlett, the Xbox One successor. So really, we of course have seen Microsoft do some very interesting things this generation when it comes to the Xbox One. Of course, the introduction of Game Pass was admittedly a huge deal. Like, it really sort of changed Microsoft's direction and their vision of the company. Of course, we have xCloud looming on the horizon as well. xCloud is going to be compatible with your mobile devices. Cloud gaming is finally going to be a normalized thing, probably better than Google Stadia is, because of course the introduction into Game Pass with xCloud. But a lot of people were concerned about the Xbox Scarlett. Now, this console generation, we saw Microsoft do a really unique console that really, it didn't work out all that great, I don't think. And that of course is the Xbox One S All Digital Edition, or the Xbox One SAD as it was called by many people. Now, this was essentially a stripped down Xbox One S. It came in at $200 and it did not have a disk drive on the system. So you would think that would lower costs of the system more, but of course this was introduced at the $200 price point. It probably did not sell all that well. It seemed like a poorly made system as well. They really didn't do much as far as differentiating the Xbox One S All Digital Edition from the regular Xbox One S, just removing the disk drive or making it so that you could not access a disk drive on the system. But obviously with things like Game Pass, with things like xCloud, Microsoft is looking forward to the future of gaming. Now, whether that future is coming up in a year or two or a decade or two, that really remains to be seen. I still think we're a bit of a ways away from an all digital future, but it looks like Microsoft will be introducing two systems at the launch of the Xbox Scarlett, or the Xbox One's next successor. So according to this report from both The Verge and Kotaku, like I said, there will be two Xbox Scarlett systems. One will be the Xbox Anaconda and one will be the Xbox Lockhart. Now, of course, these are just temporary names for the system. I don't think they're going to come out with a system that's called the Xbox Anaconda unless Sir Mix-a-Lot is involved in the system. But the Xbox Anaconda is basically going to be the mainline Xbox system. It will be the 10 plus teraflop system that everyone is expecting to compete with, of course, the PS5 in terms of hardware and in terms of power and things like that. Obviously, Xbox is going to do some very unique things with this system, and it's going to be the main system. But they are also looking at the Xbox Lockhart. Now, what's interesting about the Xbox Lockhart is there are some supposed leaked information on the specs of the system. This will just be a 4 teraflop system and a slower clocked CPU. Now, what's interesting about that is, yes, this will more than likely be the all digital system if Xbox does decide to go through with this, but there's a big difference between 10 plus teraflops and 2 plus teraflops. Now, I'm not a person that knows things about technology and teraflops and crap like that, but I'm a basic numbers person, and I can tell that 10 is a larger number than 4, and slowing down the CPU is interesting as well. Now, obviously, if they are doing things like Game Pass with this system, which more than likely they will be, and maybe even some xCloud integration, it won't be as taxing on the system. You're not reading things off of the disk, but then again, most of these games that we have nowadays are pretty much when you get the disk, you insert the disk and everything loads off of the disk onto the hard drive. That's why your hard drive fills up so damn quickly on the PS4 and the Xbox One, because it is loading things onto the actual system to make the games run more efficiently. So this is a very interesting strategy if they decide to go through with this, because I honestly feel like, is there a market for this all digital system? Obviously, when you have more options, I don't think options are necessarily a bad thing. You know, look at the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch Lite, which we will get into in just a moment. Obviously, the Switch Lite is designed for a different crowd. Different people are probably picking up the Nintendo Switch Lite. You're picking it up for your kids, or maybe as a secondary system, or maybe you just want to play in handheld mode. But this is a little bit different because it's still just a dedicated home console. Now, obviously, there's going to be some reliance on things like like Game Pass. And obviously there's going to be some reliance on things like xCloud and streaming services. But if you're really relying on those xCloud streaming services, do you even need things like 4 teraflops on this system? It's definitely an interesting thing. I think if Microsoft launches with 2 different systems on day 1 of the system, it could potentially be confusing for consumers. Like, let's be real here. A lot of us are video game savvy. If you're watching this channel, you're probably pretty video game savvy, but the average person isn't quite as savvy as us. They don't know anything. That's why things like the Wii games still sell, because they don't realize there's a successor to the Nintendo Wii that's been available for, quite a while now. So it's definitely, though, like I said, a very bold strategy for Xbox to do this, to introduce potentially 2 systems on day 1. I think price point is going to play a big role in this. If they get a good price point, they may be able to get some consumers to pick up this system so that they are able to play their Xbox games. But of course, you have to have games to go alongside of that as well, and the Xbox One didn't really have many games. So it's going to be a very interesting 2020 for the Xbox brand. I'm definitely looking forward to talking about it, and I'm definitely not willing to write off something like the Lockhart quite yet, because I do think that there is a market for it, but I don't think that it's quite there yet. I don't think that the all digital thing is really a viable strategy right now. Maybe in 5 to 10 years you could start seeing a huge rise in that, to where people aren't as concerned with physical media, and obviously the companies want to do this. When you have things like no disk drive, of course there's less working parts, which means that it's cheaper to manufacture these things. But definitely a very interesting situation, and definitely something I'm keeping my eye on. And yes, the Nintendo Switch will have an interesting 2020, trying to compete with, of course, the Xbox Scarlett and the PlayStation 5 that's coming out. But it looks like the Nintendo Switch isn't slowing down anytime soon. There was huge sale data coming out of Japan, but the more interesting stuff has to be the Black Friday Nintendo Switch sales for the console. The Nintendo Switch has crushed its previous record in 1 week for systems sold. Between Thanksgiving week, between November 24th and November 30th, the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch Lite sold over 830,000 systems in the US alone. That is absolutely insane. It is the best single week that the Nintendo Switch has seen in terms of sales for the system. Of course, things like the Nintendo Switch Lite are definitely going to help that. You see a $200 system for the Nintendo Switch. It might be a little bit more attractive than picking up the $300 system as well. We also had some new sales data for Nintendo Switch related games when it comes to North American only sales. You have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in the US has sold 8.5 million copies. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has sold 8 million copies. Super Mario Odyssey has sold 6.5 million copies. And New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, for some strange reason, has sold 1.5 million copies. And honestly, it is just amazing to see the Nintendo Switch doing as well as it has been doing. Let's be real here. 2019 was a very solid year for the system, but I don't think it was nearly as good as 2018 or 2017 in terms of first-party releases. You didn't really have a massive Nintendo release for the year. You had some big key titles, of course, but you didn't have that big thing, that new Super Mario game, that new Legend of Zelda game. You didn't have any Metroid-related stuff. But here we are. For some reason, the Nintendo Switch continues to go on and break sales records. The system is just absolutely amazing. So many people were writing off this system, of course, when it was introduced. Oh, I don't think it's gonna work. Even I had my doubts about it. But it seems like Nintendo is managing to keep this momentum that they have built up with the Nintendo Switch and just keep things going in a very fast manner. 2020, though, is definitely going to be a challenging year for the system. I think you're going to start seeing some major key software titles being released. Of course, Animal Crossing is releasing in March of 2020, and Animal Crossing is a huge franchise. Look at how Animal Crossing has sold over previous Nintendo systems, and it's absolutely amazing to see the impact this game has and how so many people downplay it. But obviously there's gonna have to be some big key releases in 2020 coming to us from Nintendo, as Nintendo software tends to push Nintendo hardware. Fascinating stuff here. But it's honestly absolutely fascinating that the Nintendo Switch is still breaking sales records. You usually start to see these systems start to trail off a little bit, but the Switch just keeps going. There, of course, are some industry analysts that think it will hit Wii numbers with 100 million sold by the end of the day, and maybe it will if they continue to release quality software for it and continue to support the system. I think you could end up seeing that 100 million mark hit with the Nintendo Switch, which, of course, the PlayStation 4 just ended up hitting pretty recently. Alright, so that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, it wasn't the planned video for today, but I'm going to spend a little more time working on the planned video that I was going to do today. So let me know in the comments section down below what you think of the Xbox Lockhart. Do you think that it is smart for Xbox to release an all-digital Scarlett right along the launch of the system? Do you think it will do well? Do you think the market is really there for something like this? And what do you think about these continued Nintendo Switch sales that are just absolutely crushing records for Nintendo? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.